right, families, welcome back to the Tribe Transition webinar series. My name is Heather Deer, and I'm the Director of Family Engagement here at William and Mary. If you're watching us live, I know we're on the last day of traditional room selection, so I know some of your students are probably out selecting their housing right now. If you're watching the recording of this session, then they hopefully have a room on campus and hopefully they've navigated that process. And that's one thing done. And we're ready to move on to the next one. And it's very timely. We're talking today about academic advising and course registration, which I know once we get housing settled, this is the next big thing in the Tribe Guide checklist and the next thing that many of you have questions about as you support your student through the process. So we have a real expert today, a fan favorite of the Family Engagement webinar series to talk all things first year and transfer academic advising and course registration. Before we dive in, I have just a little bit of promo to go over today. We have moved on from book club registration, and I'm going to start talking about family orientation registration. So Friday, August 21st is your family orientation. That takes place the day after move-in, which occurs on that Thursday, August 20th. It is such a wonderful opportunity for you to learn all about the support systems that your student will have access to, what the transition might look like for you and your family, and really just hopefully leave campus feeling a little settled as your student engages in their own orientation activities. I can tell you we usually have over 40 campus partners present at our Connections Fair, over 20 different breakout sessions to choose from in the afternoon, and just wonderful opportunities to make connections of your own with other William and Mary families. We do ask that you register for family orientation, so if you haven't yet, please take a moment to do so. Registration will remain open until August, so you do have some time, and you'll hear me talk about it in the next one as well. So if you have any questions, send us an email to families@wm.edu. We can help you navigate any of those registration or family orientation questions. All right, with that, I am going to turn it over to Megan Sanbury. Megan joins us from the Advising Center. We were talking just before we started. I know students have been enrolled in their college studies course because I am enrolled in college studies. First time that I have been in a Blackboard course in a while, but it's always so helpful for me to see what students are seeing and to help answer questions along the way. So thank you, Megan, for giving us that sneak peek. And I'm just excited to hear you talk about the wonderful resources that your team has in place to support students along the way.
Yeah, thank you so much, Heather. And I did promise Heather that she did not have to complete all of the assignments. She would still be allowed to, continue her work here. We won't put any hold on her account or anything like that. So I'm
I
excited
do
to have
appreciate
you.
that.
Thank you all again for taking your time out of your day to join me too. I know you all have a lot going on, and it's really important and really helpful when you all are engaged like this and helping your student navigate things. So thank you all so much because I know time is precious. Again, as Heather mentioned, my name is Megan Sanbury. I'm the director for the Advising Center here on campus. My office is what I consider kind of a hub, or what is at the center of academic advising here on campus. We help facilitate our faculty advising model, which means that we connect students with faculty, certainly for their pre-major advisor. And don't worry, I will talk more about that as we go. We also have professional advisors in this office that help students with all kinds of things at any point in their time here at William & Mary. And that includes academic advising all the way up through thinking about fellowship opportunities. Marshall Mitchell Rhodes might sound familiar, Fulbright, things like that. So we really can work with students a lot over their time here and help connect them to all kinds of opportunities, academically related and otherwise here on campus. So today I'd like to take some time to cover what's happening for your student academically in the next few months before they arrive on campus and then into orientation. I would like to talk a little bit about how you can support them and what that looks like, and then obviously answer any questions that I'm sure you will have at the end of this presentation as well. So as Heather mentioned, college studies is open. So the first thing that students will do as kind of their introduction to their academic life here on campus is do this asynchronous online course called College Studies. And so that is in Blackboard. That is the learning platform that William & Mary uses for their courses. So this is an opportunity for students to get their feet wet in Blackboard and kind of understanding how that works. And then it's split into two parts that students will work through. Part one gets them prepared for registration. And that walks them through what is the liberal arts, what is our college curriculum, our general education requirements, helps them explore interests, how that relates to potential majors. It also introduces them to the nuts and bolts of how do I track all of this? What does this look like? How do I know I'm meeting requirements? And what does that look like on what we call a degree audit? Thinking about transferred courses, how to search for courses, how do I make an academic plan? They likely have never had to make their own schedule before. They probably have options that they can choose from to kind of slot in maybe one or two, certainly if it's their first time in college. And transfer students have the ability to build their schedule, but that may look very different for them here. So part one is really what helps them prepare for all of that. That is what the summer is for. So summer is that time for students to practice and take in information and try things that they were going to end up doing, certainly with registration, every single semester. So this is both good work for them to get started, to register for some classes in the summer, and also gives them the opportunity to make changes and adjust. And if things don't go exactly how they planned, it's a good opportunity to be able to adjust for that and accommodate. So that's part one. That part will be required for students to register for courses before orientation, so in the summertime. And they are working with a peer advisor. So all your students should have heard from a peer advisor already. If for some reason they haven't, they certainly can reach out to our office. Sometimes they can get a little bit delayed. That happens on occasion. So if they feel like they haven't heard from their peer advisor, then they can certainly reach out to us. Those peer advisors are upperclassmen students that have worked with our office and been trained to work with your students as they start their time here. And they're all students that have obviously done all of this work before. They've gone through this. They are their peers and can help them navigate all these pieces and answer questions and help them understand the student experience and what that looks like. So that's in part one. Part two will bring students into the world of information literacy. So the library has partnered with us to do part two. That goes through how to think about information, how to find and use information sources that are appropriate for college level work. Obviously, your students are the experts on what's worked for them in the past and how they absorb information and complete assignments and do academic work. But this course is going to help them, and this part is going to help them think about that transition to scholarly work here at William and Mary. And for some students, that means their first time doing college level work at this level. And for some students, maybe who are transferring, have done some dual enrollment, it's really going to introduce them to how to use the resources and understand how to produce that work here at William and Mary, which is going to look a little different. The whole college studies should take students around 5 to 7 hours to complete. Now, we try to tell them, although I went in there, one transfer student did it all in the first day. I saw all the assignments were done, which is great. It's not necessary. And your student may need to take more time to absorb. It's a lot of information in there. It's a lot of different steps. So yes, it could take one full day, essentially, if they wanted to sit down and power through, but certainly help them kind of break those pieces up. Again, it's good practice for thinking about how do you navigate courses and coursework and expectations. It will also introduce them to advising support here. So part of college studies, one of the, kind of modules or sections, lessons will teach them about what does academic advising support look like here. And as I mentioned, we have a faculty advisor model. So each student is assigned a pre-major faculty advisor through our office. So our office helps facilitate over the summer. Your student has hopefully completed their new student inventory. That gives everybody on campus, a lot of campus partners, some access to information of which is most important to me is thinking about, what are their academic thoughts about their time here and what are their major interests. So part of that survey helps our office facilitate that matching with a pre-major faculty advisor. So that is who they will work with during orientation. So they will find out who that faculty advisor is the Friday leading into orientation. They will meet with that advisor on Monday. Don't worry, I have a slide to show you the timeline visually, so you'll be good there. Once they work with their pre-major advisor, typically within their first 2 years, if they're a student who's this is their first time in college, before they declare their major, students can declare their major at 39 credit hours, including transfer credits. They must by 54. And at that point, once they're ready to declare, they will choose the major advisor that they work with. And there's a couple different avenues for doing that. A lot of students will take a class with a major advisor they've really clicked with or somebody they really enjoy. Sometimes it's a research interest. They'll look on a website for psychology and kind of pick somebody who's doing research in a really cool area that they think would be really interesting to get to partner with, to learn more about. Sometimes they don't know, and that's fine. They can come to my office, they can come to the advising center, or they can reach out to the chair, the program director for that particular major. And we are happy to, and they are as well, to connect students with an advisor that can help them through their remaining years here, really focusing on their major requirements and they're finishing their college curriculum and everything else they need to graduate. So, along with those folks that will be basically assigned to them throughout their time here, like I mentioned, they can work with advisors in my office at any point for any kind of questions that they have. There's also pre-professional program advisors, so students who are interested in things like pre-health or education or business, law school, engineering. There are faculty members who are specific to those areas to help them navigate curriculum requirements they might have for a professional program once they're through here with their undergraduate. So those are an option as well. And as I mentioned, they also have their peer advisors that they can continue to work with past college studies, which are kind of maybe a more formal program, but they are also going to have all kinds of informal advising that's going to happen for them through peers who say, oh, I took that class last semester, or I think that was easy, or, I'm this kind of a major and this is why I chose to do that. They'll get informal advising from you all as well. So for those of you that maybe have had a college experience or know others who have or have kind of thoughts about, goals and things like that with your students, you will certainly, I'm sure, help give some advice when they come to you for questions as well. So I know I talked about kind of more informal peer support, so I have to put in my plug for this one that peer support is really helpful, but it also is helpful for you to remind students to create their own path and opinions on things. I hear a lot of students talk about the pressure of my roommates are doing this or my friend said this class is hard, but it's a reminder for students that just because someone finds something difficult or easy, finds success in something, it doesn't necessarily mean the same will be true to them. So keeping in mind that they have their own experiences. And yes, those opinions are really helpful as a starting point, but also to encourage them to think about how that fits for them as well. And that's really with any advising, thinking how does that fit for you and what kind of extra support or questions do they have along the way. So again, part of part one is thinking about this college curriculum. These are our general education requirements, and they're built to, this chart is kind of showing you it's built to be completed over their time here at William and Mary. So the expectation is they will do kind of anchors in two places. The only things that are specific to a time here is their 100 or their 150, which are smaller first year or first 3 semester seminar courses that take place. And those are to help students build skills in communication, both in writing and in another form of communication that is not writing. And then their capstone course, which is that COLL 400 course, and that's really meant to be their capstone. So those are kind of anchored in both their first 3 semesters and final 2 semesters. The rest of these requirements are going to really weave throughout their time here, some of which a few may overlap with their major. Their capstone likely will. 99% of students will do that COLL 400 in their major. The rest can really be taken at any time. And oftentimes, it won't be inside their major. It's an opportunity for them to do some exploration, to try something new, to kind of think about something in a different way. The purpose of these is to help students build skills. And little plug for you to sign up for orientation. We typically do a presentation here on the college curriculum. If you're like, yes, I love curriculum, I want to know all about it, then you can join me or perhaps Associate Dean Lorenzo talking about the college curriculum during that orientation, and we can really deep dive into kind of what are the skills and the meaning of this curriculum for students. But they will get an overview of that as they're working through college studies to kind of help ground them in this work. So in addition to these courses I kind of just went through quickly, there's also proficiencies, math, arts, and language, and then additional knowledge domain requirements that kind of help round out all of these requirements for our general education. All of this is on the website. If you were like, I need to know more about this today, you can certainly go to our website and look at the COLL curriculum and how that's laid out for students. But normally this is just helpful for you to understand. The idea is it's helping students build skills as communicators, as independent thinkers, as leaders, as scholars, and it can be done across all kinds of different courses to give them exposure to a number of things. College Studies will also help your students think about how that fits into building their first semester here at William and Mary. So when you take the different components of that curriculum I just talked about, plus thinking about major or minor or double major exploration, we have created this kind of guide to help students categorize their course options. Again, this is going to look different than perhaps they've done in a different school if they're transferring, or certainly if they're coming from high school here to William and Mary. there's a little bit of freedom in here that might be a little bit daunting at first. So we're trying to help students take the lead on these and think about where these courses fit. These are as kind of a guide for students to think about how those courses could come together as a first semester schedule. So that is all part of it. We use this guide for students to help build a plan, which is it's the last assignment that they're going to do as part of college studies. So we'll give them lots of tools, lots of information, and then we will have them build a schedule as part of that last, um, part of that last piece. Sorry, I just want to make sure I wasn't missing anything in the chat. Thank you, Taylor, for dropping that link in there for the college curriculum. Appreciate it. So you'll see on this chart that your foreign language proficiency is an option that some students are going to want to think about building into their first semester schedule. If they haven't had it met already, so if students have completed up through level 4, either through high school or through community college level before coming to William & Mary, then their foreign language proficiency is met. If they haven't met it yet, then that's something they should really think about doing within their first few semesters, because some languages require multiple semesters, at least it could be multiple semesters over time. So trying to fit that in earlier is definitely helpful. Since there's quite a few ways to meet that requirement, again, it's in college studies, but I want to give you just some basis to kind of help understand that as well. I will start with kind of the easiest level, which is they just want to start new in a language, right? They have a language they want to study. They haven't taken it before. Excellent. All they have to do is start with the introductory course. So that's what they need to consider looking for, the 101 or 103 potentially level course for the language that they're interested in taking at all, or certainly for their foreign language proficiency. If that's the case, you'll see that there is a placement exam that's on their Tribe Guide checklist. They do not need to take that. So if they're starting a new language, they don't need to take any kind of placement exam. They can just plan that as part of their registration and not need to do anything additional. If your student has started a language that they want to continue here, either for their foreign language proficiency, or sometimes students have done a language before and they don't have a course specifically transferred here. So some students will transfer in 101 or 102, some of those introductory courses. If they don't have a course that they've transferred, like let's say they've taken 3 up to level 3 in high school before they came here, but they want to continue that language, that is when they would take a placement exam. So the placement exam is literally meant to test their knowledge at the time they take that exam so that they understand what course matches the level that they're at. So some students will place in 201 or 203. They will place higher, they'll place out of those introductory level courses, and that placement exam is what allows them to register for it. So honestly, any student can take the placement exam. They'll have that information. They just may not need it. But in this case, if they're continuing a language, they really want to try and do that placement exam by early July, which is the deadline on their Tribe Guide checklist. If they happen to miss that for some reason, they don't get a chance to, but they know they want to take the placement, they can take it later. It just means that they may not have the opportunity to use that placement information in this first round of registration. So they can always take the placement exam. This is not a one-time deal. That is what's going to give them the most information about what course to register for. This can be complex. We know that. So there is lots of information on the Modern Languages website. They each have a placement coordinator. So if students have specific questions about placement, they can certainly reach out to them. And if they don't know where to start and not quite sure what to do, certainly they can reach out to us and we can kind of take a look at that and help guide them there. If a student has a native language, so if English is their second language perhaps, so they have a first language, so they don't have anything transcripted, but they are fluent or what we consider like the intermediate level of a language, then there is a test that they can take that would also meet that requirement. So there's a lot of options for students to do. The most important thing is that placement is really for students who want to continue a language so they know which course to continue in. And sometimes if they haven't taken a language in a long time, sometimes that placement says you should just start back at 101, right? Like that's where you're at. Sometimes students study really hard before the placement, and sometimes that helps them too. It just depends on their certain situation. But yes, thank you again, Taylor. The link for language proficiency there is in the chat as well. So the other thing to think about when building that first semester schedule is transfer credit or what we consider pre-matriculation, right? Anything they've done before they've got here that would count at a college level. And so that could be AP, IB credit, dual enrollment, if they've taken dual enrollment while they've been in high school, or transfer credit from a community college or any other institution, four-year institution that they may be transferring from. The registrar's office reviews all of these types of credits as they come in and then applies them to their degree audit, which is the system that we use that tracks requirements and the students will access all the time. That's my other plug, is make sure they're checking their degree works early and often. I say that a lot for students because that's what helps them see what is meeting what requirement and what they have left to take. So the registrar's office review those after they are sent. So make sure you're sending us our transcripts. We're not quite there at the point where we can go out and find them for students. They have to be sent. So that means if they've taken dual enrollment credits, they need to be sent from the community college that awarded them that credit. So that needs to come through their final transcript. So if you're at a community college, you have a final transcript you're sending, that also needs to be sent to us. And then when you go into College Board, you also need to initiate those test scores to be sent to us as well, to the registrar's office, so they can receive them. Something to keep in mind. College Board doesn't send test scores until around mid-July. And you'll see, because we're talking about timeline next, that this means some of your students may be thinking about building the schedule before they have that information. So there's a couple different ways that you can access. If they know what score they got, we have a guide on the registrar's website that will show them if they get a 4 on this particular test, it would transfer as this course. There are some guides that can give them an idea of what things might transfer for. Um, and then this is just an overview to let you all know kind of where we apply any kind of transfer credit as well. So we can give you students a general idea of where things might apply. The only place it might get a little bit tricky is if they're looking at some major or minor introductory courses, they may have to wait to register for some courses that need those as prerequisites. So if, let's say, they took biology 203 and it's coming here, but they want to take the next level of biology, they will have to wait for that course to be transferred here to be able to register. But I'll show you they will have an opportunity to do that. So that's the only tricky bit. That may influence registration a little bit more. Otherwise, if you'll see in this bottom half, there are plenty of courses that must be taken here at William & Mary. So this top half tells you you can apply AP, IB dual enrollment transfer credit to what I talked about, which were those proficiencies, language, math, arts, those knowledge domain elective credits that are also part of the general education requirement, and then some major and minor courses, introductory courses typically will come through for those transfer credits, pre-matriculation, and count in those directions. What must be taken here at William & Mary, and you can see hopefully a common theme, those courses that have COLL in front of them, COLL courses you'll hear over time, those have to be taken here. And there's a number of them they need to take. Plus, there'll be major courses they need to take here, exploration courses that help them figure out those majors or minors. Just general elective course, trying something new can certainly be taken here in their first semester. So they should build their schedule around, kind of what they know they've taken that's coming in, these things that must be taken here no matter what. And then any additional courses they just want to take because it will help them make decisions about planning in the future. The ones that are asterisked on that list of what must be taken here applies for transfer students. So transfer students, depending on how you spent your time between between high school and coming here to William & Mary, your COLL requirements will look slightly different. But in college studies, there is a guide that tells you, did you get your associate's degree? Do you have 2 or more semesters? Do you have 1? And kind of helps you orient that way. So that's my little caveat there for transfer students, just to make sure to double check all those pieces. And again, all of that is laid out for the student in degree works. It's just this in-between time where we're kind of waiting for things to be applied, where it's going to look a little squishy. But luckily, they have lots of options to build a schedule, and they'll have options to adjust their schedule as well. So that moves us into how are they literally, how are they building a schedule? What does that look like? So during the summer in July, the week of July 15th through the 22nd, students will have the ability to do what we call building a cart, which is literally putting courses into a cart. This doesn't come to their doorstep. It's going to come back to their email account once that's been processed. But those students will have time to search for courses during that week that the cart is open. They can search for courses now. What I will say, if you're searching for courses now, keep in mind continuing students are still in there registering, and so the seat availability is going to look different once we stop continuing students from registering and open it up just for these incoming students. We hold seats back for incoming students, so if you're looking at it, it's looking a little scary out there right now if you go into Path. It's okay. You're gonna look when you get closer to this July 15th. Um, when the cart's open, and then you'll see the schedule is going to probably look just a little bit different at that point. So they will have the ability to go into, we use a system called Path. That's where students can search for courses and build this cart. They will put a number of courses into this cart, and we'll kind of talk about why in the next step. So they will put more than what they're looking for to get. So full time is 12 credit hours. Maximum is will be 16 over the summer, and then they will be able to go up to 18 at the start of the semester. However, please don't do that in your first semester. Please help students make sure to balance their lives a little bit, and 18 credits is pretty hefty, so we're looking at somewhere around 12 to 15. But they're going to put more than that in their cart because what happens in the next step is that students then are registered in rounds, which is kind of equivalent to a snake draft if you do fantasy football, but they are registered in rounds where they're looking at what does a student prioritize in their cart, what are they saying they want to look at as their first or second options, and so on. And then that's looked at against how many seats are available for any particular course. And then students are registered in kind of a round system behind the scenes. So the nice thing about this cart building system is they students have a week. So let's say you're on vacation, through the 17th of July. There is no priority given for students that start or finish at any given time. So as long as they have things in their primary cart by the 22nd, they will be registered basically on social class. And for this group, it's transfer students first, then first time in college students. We'll go through the process. So you will have time, they will have time to kind of look at their courses, put them in their cart, figure out how to prioritize. We will have sessions during that time. Zoom sessions, students can drop in on to ask questions as they're doing that. So if they're finding things they've got more questions about, will be available during that week to kind of answer those questions as well. And then they will get a schedule back of some kind on July 27th. So after that process is behind the scenes, then we will send them some courses back on the 27th. Generally, I would say the goal in this round is for students to get 2 or 3 courses, and that is totally fine. The idea is to get some courses from that process. Again, they're going to do this process every semester, so this is good practice, helps them understand the process. They will get a couple courses back, and then they will have the ability to make changes, so add or drop. There will always be an add drop period for every semester. So they will participate in add drop, again, for the first time potentially here. Certainly here, but potentially ever, an add drop from July 28th to August 2nd. So this is their opportunity to go up to full time. So students, if they don't have quite a full-time schedule then, they could potentially go up to full time in that period, looking for courses or just make changes, right? If they like what they got or they only want to make some changes, drop something to add something else, this is their opportunity to do that as well. So then that leads to, that's kind of the first checkpoint, right? Like they'll have their peer advisor that's supporting them. They'll create this draft schedule. They will practice registration. They'll get some courses. They'll get to add drop. They'll get to kind of craft kind of close to a full-time schedule, if not a full-time schedule, potentially during the summer. Both are okay because they will also have the opportunity to have a second round of review and revision, and that's when they meet with their advisor during orientation. So they will hear from, like I said, from their advisor on the Friday going into orientation to set up a meeting for Monday. And Monday, we're really grateful to STEP. They build in advising meetings as part of orientation because it's really important for the students to connect with their faculty advisor. So they have from 10 to 4 on that Monday just to find a half an hour slot in there, amongst other exciting orientation things that are happening, to meet with their faculty advisor. And that's a time when the faculty advisor will get to know the student and get to know your student and what their goals are and what they're thinking about doing. Take a look at the schedule they've got so far, take a look at their degree audit, and kind of think through any changes or suggestions or support that students might need at that point during orientation. And that gives students, again, one more opportunity on Tuesday, August 25th, where students can add drop courses after they've met with their faculty advisor. And so incoming students have their own slot. It's bright and early in the morning. It's 8:30 in the morning, so just make sure that students are setting all kinds of alarms, and their OAs and PAs and everybody will help them as well. But they will have their own slot on Tuesday morning to register. And then add drop opens for all students starting that afternoon and goes through September 4th. So again, they have that period of time because up until this point, they've kind of made their judgments about courses based on what they think is going to happen and what they think they might enjoy or excel at or challenge themselves with. And so this first week is an opportunity. And again, it happens every semester where if they need to make a change or adjust something, then they have the opportunity to do that through September 4th. And then like they're here and they're in classes and they're doing things. So you'll see over time it's kind of set up in pieces for students to again get practice, get feedback, try again, get feedback, try again. And if they're great in the summer and they go to their faculty advisor and everything is great, then even better, right? Lots of opportunities to discuss things. So this is the part where I think about, okay, what do we need help with from you all? Because obviously, your students are going to turn to you all as your support, as their support, and maybe your support too, and thinking about this transition and asking questions and figuring out what are they going to do with themselves and what does that look like? So here's some things I kind of thought about that helps the student and helps us when working with your student as well. Encourage that exploration and help them normalize this uncertainty. There is going to be some ambiguity here, I think, and just in general in life, and certainly here at William and Mary, and helping to encourage them to work through that, encourage that exploration. And you'll see there too, kind of promoting curiosity, thinking about things maybe they didn't already think for themselves, helping them engage in that experience, and really normalizing that feeling of, yeah, it might be a little uncomfortable, but think of the doors that it could open for you. Um, Thinking about their strengths, right? Like highlighting things helps them feel capable and prepared to embrace some of those challenges or that uncertainty. So focusing on what you know about them, their strengths, and helping them promote those and work through those. Encouraging students to take the lead. So supporting them in doing that. A lot of their time here at William Mary can be student driven. So a lot of times it's thinking about, you didn't hear from your faculty advisor, we're going to ask for the student to reach out to them and say, hey, I know we're supposed to connect. What does that look like? And certainly we're here to support them in doing that, but stepping into that role, encouraging them to take that lead and advocate for themselves is always really helpful coming from you all as well. This one I know is really hard. I think it's hard, honestly, for us as advisors also to kind of check in with students without taking it over or solving the problem or kind of seeing that pinch point and clearing it out of the way for them. Um, because I think we do similar work as you all do as supporters to try and kind of clear their pathways. So really kind of checking in with them, but letting them take the lead, letting them say, hey, I hadn't thought about maybe music. I think I might try and take a course with that or explore that opportunity. So kind of checking in with them, helping them build that resilience and that balance and kind of figuring those things out as they go. And then really reinforce using resources. Like I said, we're here to support students really at any point, and so are honestly every campus support opportunity here at William and Mary. And so we like to think about reinforcing using resources, even if they haven't hit the point where they absolutely need them yet. So thinking about tutoring or coaching, thinking about engaging with career services, thinking about setting up their accommodations if they need them or getting some extra support, just really engaging with folks on campus because we're all here to support your students and kind of encouraging them to engage in that early and often, even before they hit kind of a barrier, is really helpful because then that helps them when they do get there. Maybe they're struggling a little bit, they can kind of cross over and find a friendly face and somebody here on campus who can help them. And then the other one, obviously, cheer them on, right? Like make sure, you're offering them encouragement and celebrating those progress points, no matter what they look like. So if they get a couple classes, be like, awesome, great. Look at those couple classes. You've got a great foundation. And here are ways that we can think about adding to that. And what does that look like? I'm sure there'll be lots of opportunities here. You have very smart, capable, engaged students to kind of cheer them on along the way. Obviously, like I've said, right, resources, you all have lots of wisdom to share with your students. And so I think my encouragement for you all is just to remember that just like the students, you don't have to take that all on by yourself either. So really encouraging, like I said, students to help engage in those resources that can guide them and so that you all know that you can kind of find resources to and about for you all to utilize as well, I think is really helpful. And if you model that, then obviously, then I think your student also feels more comfortable doing that as well. So really engaging in these resources for students, asking those questions, and again, early and often. We love to see them. That's what we're here for. So don't forget these things exist. These are all the things I can think that are kind of more in my realm of possibility, but this is a very small sampling of things that students can engage with um, and with their time here as well. So that leads me to the question portion. I think I've left some time here that we can kind of focus on some questions that you all may have that perhaps I didn't cover already. And I appreciate Heather and Taylor's support there and kind of navigating those questions. I'm happy to answer them.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Megan. Q&A is
Mhm.
open, family. So all of those questions that I know you have, now is the time to drop those in the Q&A. So I'll give it just a couple seconds to see if any of those questions come through.
And again, thank you all so much for taking the time to kind of listen to all this. I know it's a lot of information for you all as well, and kind of piecing through, what's important for you to figure out right now and what other things can you kind of help navigate as we go along as your student encounters them. So you're doing all the things. Much appreciated.
Great. While I'm waiting for some questions to pop in, oh, one just did. Okay. Is there a list of required course distribution? For example, everyone must take a math class, one English class, one history class, etc. What's the best resource
Mm.
for that?
So what I would say is we don't necessarily the way our general education requirements are laid out for students is that we look, like I said, at skills that we're trying to build for students. And then faculty have built classes around those skills and core things for courses that could be across disciplines. So if you're looking for, I think the easiest thing to do is probably look at the college curriculum and look at how those things are broken out. And then if you go, when a student goes into Path to search for courses, we have a term called attributes that attaches that requirement to a course. So let's say they're looking for, I mean, I can tell you off the bat, they need one arts proficiency course, one math course, and then language, just depending on how many language courses they would need, they need to take those. And then there's a variety of different departments that would cover those COLL classes. And so the easiest thing to do if they need to take their COLL 100, they go into Path, they have an attribute drop down, and it says COLL 100 attribute, and it will bring up all of the courses that would meet that requirement. So it could be a chemistry class, it could be an English class, it could be a sociology class, it could be a range of different areas. So it could be a math, a science, an English, an arts, a humanities, a social sciences. It could be any one of those meeting that requirement. So the easiest thing to do is take a look at the requirements, go into Path and look at attributes, and they will give you basically the list of courses that then satisfies that requirement for a student. And again, College Studies does help students navigate those pieces more technically, but overall, looking at that college curriculum piece is going to be most helpful. And then each major will have its own set of requirements as well. And there is a first semester guide for majors. So each department and major has given us an indication of a couple classes that would be helpful for students who are looking to find their way into those, looking for intro courses or have an interest. That's also a resource for students as well to use, kind of navigating if they're not quite sure what they want to major in yet.
Wonderful. How many courses do students usually take each semester?
Ooh, that's a great question. So typically, I would say classes are on average, they're mostly 3 credits each. You will at times find some 4 credit classes. You will at times find some 1 credit, not as often a 2 credit, but often you'll find a 1 credit. Mostly you will find 3 credit courses, which means if you're looking at a full-time schedule, which would be 12 credit hours, they would take 4 classes. If they're looking at like 15, which is I would say kind of we encourage students to stay between that 12 to 15 credit hour mark. Most often they're going to be at 15. They're going to take 5 classes if they're on average 3 credits, a piece. So anywhere between 4 to maybe 6 courses. I think a lot of times students think, oh, I'll take 3 4 credit courses and then I'll only have 3 courses to go to. Just keep in mind, 4 credit courses are more work, typically outside of class. Inside of class, the more credits you get, the more time is allocated for that class. So it's good to have a variety, right? Like some 3, maybe a 4 credit, sometimes a 1 credit in there, especially if they're taking a lab, something like that. So it's okay to have a variety, but they're looking at probably, 4 to 6 classes this semester, I would say pretty often, most often.
Okay. Mm. I had two questions that would go kind of well together.
Okay.
Let's see if I can find them again. Mhm. How many courses are they allowed to put in their cart?
Mhm.
And when they're building their cart, are they building for just 2 or 3 courses, or are they building for a full course schedule?
Ooh, great question. Thank you, because that probably was confusing. So in their cart, they can put a maximum, I think it's between 25 and 30 credit hours, which as you heard me mention is not going to be what they end up actually taking. But what that does is it gives the system lots of options to look for open seats, because that's what it's doing. It's saying if you want this sociology 200 course and there's 5 seats, then I can put you in that. If there's not any seats, then I'll go on to your next course. So it's giving options looking for open seats for students. So they're going to put many a credit in their cart, somewhere between 25 to 30 credit hours. Um, and then their goal is to get a full schedule, right? So they put that credit hour based on their full schedule that they built as part of college studies. And the end goal is to get a full schedule. Um, it just may not happen in this first round, which is what I think is what's totally fine, is that out of this kind of optimization, we call it, or what happens kind of in the background during registration in this cart building period, means they may only get 3-ish courses in their cart from that process, but then they can build up to a full-time schedule after that. So it could be that after that initial process, they have a full-time schedule, and that's great. And they have the ability to make changes if they want to. And it could also be just as likely that they have 2 or 3 courses after that process and they build up from there. So they should start thinking about how they're building their whole schedule. That's what they're putting in their cart, as if they were going to get a whole schedule, and then just kind of take it in pieces as it comes. So get their schedule back, make any adjustments, or add any courses at that point. So yeah, the goal is to always build towards full time, and then kind of go at each stage to get there.
Wonderful. We've got two questions here from families whose students are completely undecided. They don't know
Yeah.
what major they want to do.
Yes.
How can we help them come up with a first semester schedule if they don't quite know where they want to be?
Yes. So there are some really great resources on our Career Center's website as well that students have access to that they could do over the summer if they felt like that was helpful for them and kind of giving them some structure around what they might want to do. So there's an opportunity for them to look at their values and what that looks like. There's also web pages that's literally called "What do I do with this major? What can I do with this major?" Helps them understand career opportunities or skill sets and things, and how does that link to certain majors. They can certainly use those resources as opportunities to explore things about themselves and to kind of understand more about what does a major lead to, like what does that actually mean. So there's lots of resources there that students can engage in really at any point, and if it would help them now, they certainly can do that. But also, I think it's good for them to think about what are they interested in, and use that college curriculum to help meet requirements in the college curriculum and explore some of those things that they think they might be interested in. So, like I said, they can use that first semester major kind of exploration webpage that can help them look at different majors and what are some of those introductory courses. And then they can use that college curriculum to go, huh, this will meet one of my knowledge domains, and I'm kind of interested in it. I think I might want to study it, or I did really well in that in high school, and I want to see if I can do that here. That is part of what that college curriculum is built to do, is to help students explore some of those things. And then obviously, when they get to orientation and they meet with their faculty advisor, that person can also help them think through what are their interests, what are their goals, what do they think they might want to do, where do they excel? Do they like to take exams? Do they like to write things? Write papers, all those things can kind of factor into where do they find their space here academically. And so that is a great opportunity too to talk with the faculty advisor. Even if it's not an area that they think they're most interested in, that faculty advisor absolutely understands how academics work, can them connected with other departments, can think about how to build a schedule, knows the college curriculum, right? Like all those things that are supporting that student in their first semester to kind of get them to that point. And that's okay if they're undecided. That's the joy of a liberal arts curriculum and an institution, is that we help you get there and figure out those options.
Yeah, I know that that can be a big shift
Yeah.
from maybe families you're hearing about other students who went to orientation and they had to declare their major and they maybe were
Yep.
handed a prescribed, here's your first semester based on what major you chose. And William Mary's philosophy is just a little bit different. It really allows for that
Mhm.
exploration and it gives a lot of grace to students who maybe don't know yet what their major is going to be. I know there are many statistics out there about how many times students change their major, like in the first 2 years.
Mhm.
And this is a little bit more of an intentional approach to allow students to explore. And their advisors are going to make sure that they're not getting too far off course during
Yep.
that time frame. We have
Yes. The nice
structures in
thing is,
place.
I'm so sorry, Heather. Yeah. I mean, the nice
Go
thing
ahead.
is that typically students in their first semester are always making progress on something. And so they're not going to get here and have a semester where it feels like they just took a bunch of random things that don't go anywhere. Our curriculum is intentionally built to help students keep making progress towards something, even if they're doing that exploration piece as well. So I know that's a stress point too. It's like I'm just taking a bunch of random things, but they typically are always building or meeting a requirement of some kind. So we got you.
Are course listings available in advance for planning purpose? And how far in advance can we see spring 27 courses, for example?
So typically the next semester's courses are released, I would say registration for the spring will happen in the fall, probably sooner. I mean, like they're gonna do this registration and they're gonna get here and then we're like, hey, it's time to register again. So that typically happens, around October, early November, right? That time frame for students. And typically that course schedule is released, I would say, 2 weeks or so before carts open. Now, you can see historically what's been offered. So if you go into Path Now, you can see, and often students will look back to see what was offered last spring. And oftentimes that is a great indicator for what is probably going to be offered in the next spring. So sometimes for planning purposes, especially when you get into major courses and looking at electives and things, you can also look back at a previous semester before you get to the next semester. But they will have time during what we slot as an advising period in a semester to look at the next upcoming schedule. And then typically in the springtime for fall, summer and fall are released within, a day or a week of each other so they can plan if they want to take summer courses, when they're planning their fall as well. So there are multiple ways to kind of get an idea of what's going to be offered potentially in the future to help with those planning pieces.
Okay. Does William and Mary offer any of the COLL classes as a study abroad option?
Oh, great question. Yeah, so actually, intentionally so, one of the college curriculum pieces is built around this global experience. So, a Call 300 is an option for students that they can meet through study abroad. And we really encourage, obviously, we're number one in study abroad for students. We really encourage students to figure out a way to fit that in. There's lots of opportunities to do that in a regular semester, in a spring break, in a winter, in a summer. Certainly third party, even if they don't do a program specifically run by William and Mary faculty, they can also incorporate that experience and meet that 300 requirement. So they have the opportunity to engage in study abroad to meet a requirement here as part of their general education requirement. And if they can't, for whatever reason, which is also completely fine, we have campus courses that are also offered that meet that requirement. And they also have the ability to do that requirement potentially through our DC program. So there are lots of different ways to kind of get those experiences. And like sometimes students will even do a study break or a study break, a spring break study abroad trip as well. So we try to give them lots of different avenues to kind of go into that world if they're looking to do that in that way, or we bring the world to them on campus. So either way, yes, they can, and yes, it meets a requirement, which is great.
It's a great question.
Yeah.
Okay. How will a student know if they've satisfied their language proficiency requirement?
Yes, so I mentioned it a few times. We have a system that's called DegreeWorks, and what we call a DegreeWorks audit, which sounds very intense, but is really a way for students to log in. It collects all of the information for anything they've taken anywhere other than William Mary that they've transferred here. So that's test scores, anything like I mentioned, pre-matriculation. It takes anything they've taken here and it slots those things up into the requirements. So it will have all of those college curriculum requirements in DegreeWorks. Once they declare it, will have all their major requirements. If they have a minor, if they have two majors, a concentration, whatever they've declared that they're trying to get, every student will have the college curriculum, but anything else they add to that after that will be in their DegreeWorks audit. If their language is met by either taking enough levels in high school or taking the courses before they get here that have transferred, you will see a little green circled check mark next to foreign language proficiency. That's how they will know that it's met. If they don't happen to see that and they've got questions about something that has or hasn't transferred, once we get into like I would say July, give the registrar's office some time to process. They're getting a lot of transcripts and information, and currently just might be a time delay. They're really not seeing that by like late July, then have them, reach out to the registrar's office transfer credit to kind of check in to see where any of that might be. But it will be checked off for them if it's met. And same with any requirement. So any of those things where I mentioned proficiencies, domains that or some major requirements that might be met by something else will have a little green check box next to it. It's very satisfying. So they'll see that there when they look at their degree works audit.
Nice. When are DegreeWorks audits accessible to incoming students?
Right now. So students can see their degree work audit, and there's a module in college, the college studies course that shows them how to get to that. Everything is basically in Banner. A student has a student profile where they can access their unofficial transcript, their degree works audit, their schedule. Like it's all kind of in one place for them to access all of that. So they can see it now. What they may not see yet is their transfer credit. That's the part that's going to just take some time. So they can access the audit, but it's going to have a lot of little open circles on it until things start to come in and until they register for some classes. So they should go in there because it helps them familiarize themselves with what it looks like and how to use it and how to get there. And don't panic if it looks blank right now. It probably does, and that's okay. They're just waiting for those things to kind of come in, be evaluated, and applied. Some of them may see some stuff on there, but certainly transfer students may, if you're coming from a community college and have sent your transcripts already, you may see more things on there. But those test scores, yeah, they take a hot second to come in.
You take a
So
little time. Yeah.
yeah, yep.
Okay. I see lots of questions in the Q&A about specific foreign language proficiency
Mhm.
scenarios. We
Yep.
won't have time to go through all of the scenarios. So what I am going
Yeah.
to ask instead is, where is the best place that families can sit down with their student and start to assess before some of that is available in DegreeWorks if their student
Mhm.
has met the requirement through previous coursework, test scores, etc.?
Yeah. So on the Modern Languages webpage, you will see an outline for the foreign language proficiency and the multiple ways to get there and how to kind of navigate that. The other place, which would be helpful for you all to be familiar with, and certainly for your students, is the catalog. So the catalog, you may remember it maybe from a bulletin. Like I had a book they gave me when I started at college that had all of the requirements, all of the regulations, all of the policy. Ours is obviously online now, but if you look at the catalog and you look in the index for foreign language, it will again lay out all of the pathways to get that language met. What we're really like when you're thinking about, because I see some questions in there about, well, they took 3 years and an AP exam, and then they also took two, like there's lots of different combinations. We're looking for that level 4. There has to be some sort of transcripted, whether it's on their high school transcript or it's transcripted because they took courses specifically that will transfer, something like that. They're looking for up to that level 4. That intermediate level has to be complete to meet it before they get here. So sometimes that is a combination of things. Sometimes it's just straight, level 4 through high school. But I think the easiest thing to do is look at those pathways either in the catalog or the Modern Languages website. And then it may just be a matter of reaching out if something maybe doesn't look the way you expect it to, either the registrar's office or our office to kind of take a look to see um, maybe a more specific circumstance, just because again, everybody's is going to look slightly different, and really what we need is that transcripted piece of it to be able to determine things. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, if a student is a SHARP scholar and has a required
Yes.
class for the SHARP
Yes.
program or a one other credit hour class, let's
Yep.
say any of these programs have
Mhm.
you have to take this class, do
Yes.
they still need to register for those, add them to their cart, or are they registered for those courses automatically?
So I will give you the depends answer. So it depends. So some of those courses will be registered for you. Some of those courses they need to make you aware of and you will be responsible for registering for. So what I will say is each scholars program is communicating with their scholar students and kind of giving you extra supplemental information as you go through college studies on how that process is going to work. So there are times which you're going to rank some courses and they're going to register you. There are some times when a course is available only to you as a scholar that you will need to make sure you register for. Same with the joint degree program. So, joint degree program, if you have a student who's enrolled in that and they're here at William and Mary this year, they will work with their major advisor in the summer. There'll be some courses they're registered for and some courses they need to register. So anybody who's in a specific program like that that has courses that are kind of associated with it, just make sure. I know they're getting a lot of emails. I know it is not the preferred way for students to get information. It can be overwhelming, but do their best to kind of go through and make sure to look for things that are related to a specific program or registration because those tend to be time sensitive. But their scholars program should be communicating directly with them about exactly what the process is for that. So they make sure they're kind of on board there. Yeah.
Yep. they should be checking their William and Mary email, and it
All the
will
time.
provide direct instructions. We're getting
Hmm.
to the point in the summer where I start to tell families your students are receiving more clear instructions than I will have access to
Yeah.
from program directors, residence life itself,
Mhm.
you name it, students are going to start to receive really specific information that us in family engagement won't have access to. So now's a good time to start having those conversations with your student about what information are you receiving, and what instructions have you been given. It might be that they have that specific information in their inbox sitting, and it may come a little bit later, but that's just something to keep in mind as we get closer to the midpoint of our academic summer, some would say. Okay, we are running out of time. I know that we still have questions in the Q&A, so I want to give Megan an opportunity to say if there are any lingering questions, where do we go? And then I was
Yeah.
curious if you could highlight, family engagement is doing drop-in hours on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but are there any opportunities for students? This is a great opportunity for them, like you mentioned, to start taking the lead and start really having some of these conversations themselves with peer advisors and advisors. This is the time of year where I get really good at my spiel. I am not
Yeah.
an academic advisor and I cannot give academic advice and guidance, but Megan, where can they go for that?
Yeah, so if we're talking students, and students have the ability to obviously work with their peer advisor and email them anytime, but if they're looking to kind of engage with my office, we the advisors here have drop-in hours over Zoom on Tuesdays and Thursdays as well. So that's in college studies with the links. There's a morning and an afternoon. I think it's Tuesday mornings and Thursday afternoons, if I'm remembering correctly. So there's kind of two options there. And their peer
It's like our
advisors.
exact schedule almost.
Oh, see, it's like we planned it. So it's easy to remember then. So the link is in college studies. So just certainly encourage your student to go. That's in the announcements there in college studies and Blackboard. And then the peer advising, we have what's called an executive team. So they're like advanced peer advisors that have worked with our office more intensely a little bit and kind of helped train. And certainly have been peer advisors in the past and kind of are working in this upper level, and they will host them on Saturdays. So there are opportunities on the weekend as well to get some questions answered if they need them beyond maybe emailing with their peer advisor. So they're welcome to engage that way. And then, Heather's always does a really great job of kind of giving me these questions after. And so certainly I'm happy to provide some general information that she sends you lots of great follow-up on things. And so there's also an opportunity, as they come through to kind of answer questions that way as well. So you're always welcome to reach out to us. Certainly, if we feel like it's something we want to engage with a student on, we will let you know. But if you've got some questions you want to reach out to advising at wm.edu, we can certainly help field some of that as well. So I'm happy to answer them as they come in.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Megan. And I'll just add the caveat for families, those drop-in hours for students with peer advisors and the advising center staff are for students only. So just keep that in mind that we're anticipating that the students will be the one dropping into those drop-in hours. All right, Megan, thank you so much for spending an hour with us over lunch. It's always a pleasure. Thank you, families, for joining us, and I will see everybody on the next one. Bye, everybody.